Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all things entertainment. It's always a great time. Marvel is back, baby. Okay. I saw Thunderbolts last week. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I know we've been trying to say that Marvel is back for some time, but it hasn't been there. It has not been there. But this movie, Thunderbolts, has definitely sold me. It got me excited for the rest of the movies that they have planned coming out. I actually cared about what was happening on screen. Oh my gosh, it was just so good. Okay, so I have to talk about Thunderbolts and Marvel's epic return to greatness. So obviously spoilers for everything that happens in Thunderbolts, so keep moving past if you haven't watched it yet, because I am going to talk about everything.
There's something wrong with me.
The story in Thunderbolts, so good. Okay, I know I'm just kind of glazing it, but I think it's fantastic. It's not just like a generic superhero story. I feel like they're actually trying to say something pretty well. I think I saw someone else talking about it where they're like, oh, they finally hire a real director to like tell this like almost dramatic story. And I feel like that's really the case, because holy crap, they just did such a good job. I think the main thing about the story of this movie, it kind of deals with like almost existentialism, where Yelena is 100% struggling with finding some purpose in life after, losing Natasha after the events of Endgame. She's kind of like a secret agent right now working for the CIA, and she's struggling. She doesn't feel like she has a purpose in life, and it's a rough time for her. And I feel like in the world of the MCU, I feel like that's something that a lot of people would be struggling with, especially after the Avengers kind of disbanded. No one really feels like they have heroes anymore. No one really feels like there's much purpose for anything anymore. And even us as the audience kind of feel the same way. So bringing that into their character and being like, okay, how do they find purpose? I think is a great start for that. But then you also have a lot of other characters that have the same thing. It's not just Yelena. You have John Walker. You have Ghost. You have Alexi. I don't know why I wanted to say Alexi. You have Bob. You have Bucky. All these characters don't really feel like they have a purpose right now. Even Bucky, he's in like Congress, and he wants things to move in a different way, but he can't really do that there. He was able to do that more being with the Avengers or just helping out with Cap occasionally. And he's longing for some purpose. Everyone's longing for some purpose. Just like we as the audience, we want the MCU to have purpose again. Everyone has felt like it has not really been connected in the MCU lately. And I do think that has mostly been the case, but I feel like this movie changes that. And we'll talk about that later in the video as well, because I do really think that they are finding a new way to connect with the greater universe that is coming down the line within the next couple movies. And I'm excited for that. But on top of the big existentialism thing, that is what their villain is dealing with. Bob. He wanted to feel like he had some purpose. So he does like this superhuman trial type thing, but that amplifies what's already there. So he feels like he can do really good things, but then he has that imposter syndrome, and that imposter syndrome has manifested itself as the Void. Kind of one of the scariest Marvel villains I feel like we have seen, because when he shows up, like, he is just like a black void and like causing things to just vanish into nothingness and just letting the existentialism take over. It's that voice in your head that is always telling you you're not good enough, no one actually cares about you, like all the negative things. It is that manifested, and I feel like that's something we can actually relate to as a villain. Some villains I feel like do have some pretty solid points, even in the MCU, but none of them I really feel like we can personally relate with more than the Void. Especially because the Void is one half of a person. Bob is not a villain. I was kind of waiting for Bob throughout the movie to be like, and I'm evil. But it was never that. It is just the internalized hate that manifests itself, and that becomes the villain. It's not Bob himself. And that, I think, is awesome. I think it was interesting in the way they were able to portray it. And it's something that a lot of people feel. You have your own inner villain of turmoil that constantly hates you. At least a lot of us do, I feel like. Maybe not everybody, but I feel like a lot of people have that. So it makes it relatable as an audience member. And just the way it acts and how they put it in this movie and how it makes you feel is crazy. Especially because it has like the usual like quippy banter in MCU, but I feel like they did it even better in this. Like a lot of shots were taken at like John Walker, mainly because of like the events that took place in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which makes sense, but they do it in a way that doesn't feel unnatural most of the time. Sometimes in Marvel movies, you're like, okay, there's a little bit too much joking for what's going on. But in this, it was like snarkiness is as like a coping mechanism and not being funny for the sake of being funny, but like these characters are in dire situations. They're really fucked up in the head. So they kind of just play through it with snarkiness. And so it makes a lot of sense. But then like the feeling like the Void gives, you know, that existential dread kind of thing. And like they give you hope and then take it away and then give you hope at the very end. Like when the Void first shows up, Alexei gets like his little hero moment and he saves a child, and then she just into a shadow. That left the audience like gasping. In my theater, everyone was like, oh my gosh. Like that was one of the darker things I've ever seen in the MCU. And like, I know we just had Deadpool, which was rated R, but it's not the same kind of thing. In this movie, like it was a dark scene where you're like, holy crap. Like they went there. They basically just murdered a kid in front of everybody, which is shocking. You would have never expected that, I feel like. Like things can happen in Marvel movies, but especially not on screen are they going to show like a child just dying like that. Just how they were able to use this story to manipulate your emotions and talk about like an interesting issue of like existentialism and wanting to find a purpose and stuff, and then ending that with some major changes for the MCU, I think is great. I feel like we got a proper story out of this movie. It wasn't just, oh, it's a superhero movie. It's just a good story, like a good drama almost, that just happens to include superheroes as a catalyst. And that, I think, is just fantastic to have that in the MCU.
That's what they talk about!
That's not good.
Along kind of similar lines to the fresh take on their story in the MCU, because I don't feel like we've gotten that as much lately, they made a movie. Okay, they made a film, basically, specifically with the cinematography. I felt like it did not feel like I was watching a Marvel movie half the time in terms of how it was being shot. And I like sort of said that with Captain America, Brave New World. And I do still feel like that was kind of the case. They were being a little bit more experimental in that one, but in this one, like it felt like cinema. They had interesting compositions. They moved the camera in interesting ways that was supporting the characters. They have like kind of a grayed color palette in this to help support the story. Like everything seemed like it had just the right little details in it. You know, in the cinematography, in the sound, in the soundtrack, in the lighting, in the color grading, the editing. Oh my gosh, it just felt not like a Marvel movie. You know, it was a breath of fresh air. It's like what I watch for other types of movies, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a cool shot. And maybe it's just more because, you know, I make like short films, or I want to do filmmaking and stuff, so I just like am tuned in to notice that more. But it was like, oh, I can watch this and really appreciate the craftsmanship that went into this as well. It was just so different. It's like, first, like the cinema. I'll use the opening scene as a good example, because that's where I had first noticed it. Because like as soon as the movie starts, I'm like, oh, this is cool to look at. I like this. But for cinematography, like you have a cool top-down shot of Yelena fighting in like a building. You get the really cool opening shot of her doing the jump off the building, like to parachute. So you have that really cool, like bird's eye view, almost like at her level. That didn't feel like hugely CGI-y, where like sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that's obviously fake. But it wasn't, because we've seen the behind the scenes. So like they actually like kind of did a lot of it. Like they wired her up and she actually jumped off a building, and that was really cool. And then you have like the low shot, almost reminding me of like Godzilla, where she's coming from such a huge height and it's like descending into this mindset almost, because she's having her whole narrative about like, I don't feel like I have anything right now. So that kind of helps support it with the cinematography. And I love it. It just feels like there was a lot more care and detail put into this. And it was so good. I think especially when the void comes up, like his effects that they have are just really cool, where like all the darkness is just kind of consuming everything, and that's how it feels in a lot of people's minds. I've had that before. It was, just the way they were able to use the visuals alone, fantastic. I think they absolutely crushed it. But also, the sound design, and the soundtrack. Oh, holy crap, it was so good. I think we'll talk about sound first, and then I'll talk about the soundtrack. For the fight scenes, it felt like things were actually getting hit. You know, I complained about that in the new Captain America, that it felt like things were really weak. That was definitely not the case in Thunderbolts. They obviously watched my review. But it did feel like things were actually hitting. It didn't, like, even in the choreography, like seeing it along with the sound, it didn't feel like things were just missing. Like, it actually felt like a really good fight scene. When the void shows up, you have this ominous kind of whooshing is maybe how I would describe it, that like as the darkness is consuming, or when he makes people just like vanish like into the shadows, which kind of interesting thing that I was seeing like on the behind the scenes. It's inspired by, I believe it was Hiroshima, that like when like one of the nuclear bombs went off, that like shadows were cast on walls type thing. That's like what it was inspired by, and I think using that in this movie I think is very effective, because it's something we sort of recognize, and it's haunting to see these people suddenly gone. And it's not like gone in like a scream, gone in an explosion, gone in a shootout, whatever. It is just gone. And so that is just ominous, and it adds to the feeling that the story is providing, that existential feeling. They have to use sound in order to really make that work. I don't think it just sound, but I think the sound and the visuals support the story perfectly. Like, so in that example, so you have the sound that's like looming over everything. The color grading is doing the same thing. Like, I feel like a lot of people have complained about movies lately, specifically superhero movies. They feel usually kind of gray, and I do think that's the case. I think Brave New World did a good job of being like super colorful. In this one, it is gray to support the story. There's a feeling of dread everywhere. So being gray kind of helps with that. And you notice as the movie carries on and things kind of get more hopeful, more color gets brought back into things, which I think is awesome. I think that supports where the story went as well. And so using the sound and the visuals together in that manner just ends up being fantastic. And now to talk about the soundtrack as well. Is so good. And it didn't feel like they were reusing tons. Like the Avengers theme is in here, and like that makes sense. But a lot of the characters, each scene feels different. Like in the Avengers movies, every song you could listen to on its own and be like, yeah, this is part of an Avengers movie. I did not think that about Thunderbolts. Every song like felt cohesive, and they felt like part of the movie, but they didn't feel like the MCU music. It was more than that. It was little motifs for different characters. Like Bucky got a new motif that is different from the Winter Soldier that people have been super excited about. When Alexei comes in, we get some little motifs. And when the other heroes, or when the Void comes in, there's different things that they added that they just hit, and it just feels fresh, feels new, and feels different than what we're used to in the MCU. And that is something that I just love. It's just some fresh air. It's a great time.
Being the hero, saving people in the streets, there is no higher calling.
So probably the biggest impact of Thunderbolts is the feeling it gave me watching. Okay. Beyond the existentialism of the story, it was the feeling that I would get from the older Marvel movies, from pre-Endgame, where you would watch a Marvel movie and you're excited to watch a new one. I love that kind of feeling for a movie experience. I'm not saying I want every world to be connected, but some movies, I think particularly in a franchise like this, it should invoke the feeling of, oh, I want more in this world. And Thunderbolts did that for me. And it wasn't just like because of the after credits scenes and stuff, but I think it was because of some of the stuff that I talked about earlier. It had a new kind of story that they were telling. They experimented more with their sound and visuals to really help support their story. It felt different and it felt good to watch. It was not, oh, I gotta kind of go sit and watch a Marvel movie because that's kind of my role as a reviewer, essentially. Like, sure, I love the Marvel properties, but at the same time, like, it was almost feeling like a chore for some of their movies, where you're like, yeah, I want to go watch it, but like, I kind of feel like I have to as well, which I don't think feels good for a franchise. You want to be excited to go watch it. Like, the DC movies. I feel like some people have loved the Zack Snyder stuff. That was not for me. But, like with those, I was like, it was the same kind of thing where I was like, I'll probably just wait for it to come out on streaming. And that's not good. I want to support movies in the theater. I feel good about going to a movie theater and seeing how it's supposed to be on a big screen. That is the point of movies for me. I want to see it huge. I want to see it with booming sound. Like, I just think it is great. But those movies weren't doing that for me. However, they did have some that I felt like were worth seeing in the theater. I think especially lately, as James Gunn has gotten into the DC universe, the Suicide Squad. So good. This is more a TV show, but Peacemaker was fantastic. I'm actually really excited for the Superman movie, which is kind of a first. I didn't always love Superman as a character, until later, I started appreciating him more as like I learned more of his lore, but I feel like Zack Snyder had kind of ruined that for me. But the new Superman, I think, looks exciting. That's the kind of feeling that I want. Thunderbolts, I was excited to go watch, so I had that feeling just going into it. But watching it, I wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a one-off. Kind of like Deadpool and Wolverine. Like Deadpool and Wolverine, good, fantastic. I loved that movie. I thought it was so much fun. However, it felt alone. It didn't feel like part of something else. Thunderbolts feels like part of something else. And it's like, yeah, we want more in the MCU. And I'm like, great. This sounds awesome. That is the feeling that I want. Again, I want more of that. I think, like, if you liked Thunderbolts, I'm hoping you felt the same way, where it gave you a feeling of, oh, I want more. I want more like this. I want them to get experimental again. I want that MCU feeling of, oh, I want to see the next big event. I want something crazy to happen. I want things to get interconnected occasionally, but also be able to stand on their own. Thunderbolts stands on its own as a movie. I feel like there are some parts that they mention that maybe you would want to know a little bit about the other movies, but I don't feel like you have to know every piece of Marvel lore to enjoy Thunderbolts. But a lot of the other ones and the shows are that way. I love that I can have that feeling again. It gets me excited for Fantastic Four, which I think looks pretty interesting. We've kind of had some weird times with that property, so I understand kind of being a little bit hesitant, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hoping that when I watch Fantastic Four, that I get the same feeling, where I'm like, yes, I'm excited for what's coming next. And I hope you are too. Because I'm imagining, if you're watching, I'm guessing you at least sort of like Marvel. And I liked Marvel for a long time. And after Endgame, I wanted to keep liking it, but it just felt like it was losing my interest. But I feel like it's coming back up. Potentially, I think it could be good. So I'm excited to see where they go with the new direction. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? I'm excited. I got that feeling. But anyways, that was my thoughts on Thunderbolts. So let's get into our rating. Okay. If you don't know our easily entertained rating scale from least to best, it is garbage. Once is fine. Right mood. Quotable. Go to, and all day, every day. And, originally, I was going to put it at quotable. But I think we're at, like, a middle ground. Like, maybe I should be using the 1 to 10 scale, but I do feel like I'm at a middle ground right now between quotable and go to. I'll have to watch it again, I think, to really solidify my rating. I don't know if I'll do that while it's in theaters, but I would need to see it again, I think, to solidify my rating. But I feel like it's right between those. It's quotable / go to. I feel like I got to process it more because I feel jazzed that I have the feeling again of the MCU being exciting. But I don't know if that's just because, oh, this was a really good movie, or if it's like I was just excited to see something different. So we kind of got to let it simmer and stew for a little bit. So I'm going to put it right in the middle. Quotable / go to. Okay. That's my thing. I think especially like they just fit both. Okay. If you have a different rating for Thunderbolts, please let me know down below. Okay. But that is it for this episode of Easily Entertained. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified of all new episodes when they release every Tuesday. It's always a great time. Okay. And if you have any suggestions for entertainment properties that you'd like to hear me talk about, it could be movies, TV shows, games, books, whatever. I'd love to talk about some more stuff that you also enjoy. I'm open to expanding my horizons on different entertainment stuff. So, let me know down in the comments. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, bye.